Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Kaylin Hessel-Owens. I am the Outreach Manager with the Oregon Able Savings Plan. And today we are going to talk about everything you could want to know about the Oregon Able Savings Plan. So let's get started. First, wanted to explain that ABLE is housed in the state treasury. I know that this is an agency that you might not be as used to working with, since most disability services come from like DHS or Medicaid. So quick reason for this. Back when the state legislature decided this is something they wanted to offer Oregonians, they gave it to us because we had been managing the Oregon College Savings Plan for about 20 years. Behind the scenes, these programs are set up very similarly, so they knew we could manage a savings plan like this. So my division does ABLE, we do Oregon College for all sorts of higher education expenses, and then we also do Oregon Saves, which is a retirement program that allows more people who didn't previously have access to retirement savings through work to have that opportunity. So why do ABLE accounts even exist in the first place? Let's look at an example. One of the most popular goals people tell me that they're saving for, and that is housing. You know, no matter where we live in this state, it costs a lot for housing, and we all want to live, you know, as independently as possible. So the average rent for a one bedroom in Oregon is about $1,000. And this isn't for, you know, some luxury apartment. This is just for your average run of the mill apartment. So we'll need the rent to move in, but we will also need a security deposit, which can be up to a month or even 2 months of rent. So to move into this apartment, it's going to cost $2,300. Now, it can be hard to come up with that much money, but what if you had an extra hurdle? You know, what if you weren't allowed to have $2,000 in your bank account or anything above that? You know, that puts this goal that everybody has completely out of reach. And for decades, this was the reality that people with disabilities were living with. Because there are many critical benefits like SSI and Medicaid that say, you know, if you have more than 2,000, you can't get those services. So for decades, people with disabilities were functionally forced to live in poverty to get their basic needs met. But thankfully, that is no longer the case because now we have ABLE accounts. SSI and Medicaid are, you know, perhaps the most common benefits that our savers receive, and they have an asset or resource limit, and that's that $2,000 number for an individual. Well, money saved in ABLE will not count as an asset for either of those programs, but they also will not negatively impact any other state or federal benefit. So we've got SSI, Medicaid, SSDI, SNAP, HUD housing assistance, Medicare, FAFSA. So if you're, you know, applying for financial aid to go to college or a trade school, it doesn't show up on that application either. So this allows someone to have up to $100,000 in their ABLE account and still get all of their services. So this has really been a game changer for folks. You know, if you think about our original goal, just trying to get that apartment, you know, if we're able to save up to 100,000, we can get that apartment, and we might even be able to save up for a house one day. And our program officially launched at the end of 2016, and since then we've got about 7,000 Oregonians who have been saving. The average account size is around $10,000, and nobody has complained to me that they have, you know, lost their benefits because of this. So this program is working, because you better believe we'd hear if, you know, somebody was negatively impacted. So this has been going great, and today we'll go through all of the details that you should know about. First one is who even qualifies for this program. There are two criteria that you have to meet. First is severity of disability, and second is age of onset. So severity of disability means that whatever kind of condition you have, it meets Social Security's definition of what a disability is. So if you receive SSI or SSDI, then it's clear you meet that definition. But let's say you don't, because you or your family has too many assets, too much income. That's fine. We are not concerned about that part. We only care if you meet their definition of what disability is. And that can be, intellectual, developmental disability, blindness. If you're hard of hearing, you have a psychiatric disability, some kind of congenital anomaly, all those sorts of things could potentially qualify someone for ABLE. Now, the second criteria is age of onset. So this means that someone's disability started before their 26th birthday. So if you were diagnosed before then, it's clear you meet that definition. But some people, it's a bit more complicated. Maybe they got a diagnosis a little later in life, but we know by the nature of that condition, they've always had it. Just took a while for the doctor to figure out what to call it. Or maybe somebody was in a bad car crash at 25, but it wasn't until 27 that the doctor realized they had a traumatic brain injury. Well, since that injury can be directly connected to that crash, that event that happened before 26, that person can qualify. Now, this does mean that there are quite a few people who do not qualify, but thankfully, this age of onset is being increased on January 1st, 2026. That number will go up to 46. This was just passed by Congress at the end of 2022. So we are excited to see more people be able to benefit from this program. We think that this will significantly help veterans who might have been injured while serving, people with mental health conditions. There's just so many different types of disabilities that can happen throughout a person's lifetime. So we are grateful that they'll be able to participate in this program. But if this applies to you or someone that know that January 1st, 2026, you're going to be able to come to our website and start opening that account. Now, if you're not sure if you qualify, we want to be extra sure. You can get what we call a disability certification form signed by your doctor. It's basically a fancy doctor's note. If you go to our website, OregonAbleSavings.com/forms, you can just look for the one that says physician, take it to your appointment. It'll explain to the doctor what ABLE is, what these criteria are, and then they'll just sign off on it. And you would keep a copy of that for your files. Now, my favorite part about the program is that from the very beginning, this was designed to be a self-empowerment tool for people with disabilities. That comes across a couple of different ways. First, the person with the disability is both the beneficiary and the account owner. Now, when we say beneficiary, we mean the person who is benefiting right now. When we say account owner, we mean the person who owns all of the money in the account. So it is up to our individual saver to decide, who's going to manage the money, what they're going to do with it, and all of the money in there needs to be used for the benefit of the saver, even if they have someone else managing the account. We also built this with a presumption of competence. We recognize that it is most empowering when person can make their own decisions in life. So by presuming competence, that means we assume all of our savers can manage their account independently. We know that is not the case for everyone, but that comes through in a couple different ways, like me talking directly to people with disabilities. I'm not saying, well, this person will manage the account for you, so I'm just going to talk to them instead. No, I assume that you are able to manage this yourself, and that if you need some kind of support, you will let us know. And we are providing those supports. We have options so that other people can help you, and that other people can manage the account for you if that is going to be what's best for your situation. But one thing I do want to point out is that even if you have a rep payee, you can still manage your own account. There's the opportunity for rep payees to manage it for you. But if you want to manage it yourself, you can do that. Now let's talk about how other people can help you with this program. If you would like help, I encourage you to think about, what exactly do you need help with? Do you need help understanding your options? Do you need help talking to customer service? Do you need help, filling out the form? Because for most of those, you can use something called supported decision making. That still keeps you at the center of the decision, but it allows people that you trust to help you know, help you with those decision making. A lot of times it might just feel like, this person makes a decision or not, but if you break down that process, it's a bit more complicated. Let's say I want to go buy a car. It's going to be my money, my car, I own it, I'm driving it, but I am going to talk to my friend who knows a lot about cars and say, hey, is this, a good option for me? What do you think of this? Is this safe? I'll talk to my husband to say like, hey, do you think we can manage, this big of a car payment? And then, I've got a friend who really loves negotiating and arguing, and I don't, maybe that's not my, maybe I don't love that part. So I'll bring this friend with me, and she might do all of the talking while we're at the dealership, but I'm still buying the car. It's still my decision. Even if, to the salesperson, it feels like this other person is the one in charge. That's kind of an example of how supported decision making can work. It's just a newer, fancier way of explaining a way that I think people in general have made decisions for a very long time, if not forever. But this is becoming more popular and kind of more recognized in the disability community as an accommodation. So think about if something like that would work for your situation. But if you decide you just need or want somebody else to deal with all of this and make the decisions for you, there is that option too. And we call those people authorized legal representatives if they manage the account for another person. So that can be another individual, it can also be an organization. Some people don't have other people in their lives that they trust to do something like this, but hopefully they're at least connected to an organization that they trust who might be able to do that for them. So if you are from an organization or connected to one and you're interested in them doing this, send them our way. I'll have our contact information at the end and we can get them through that process. Now, authorized legal representative is kind of a long term, so we're just going to call it ALR to keep it simpler. Now, when an ALR goes to open the account, we have them look over this list. And the order of this list is important. We have them look it over and say, is there anyone higher on this list who is willing or able to manage this account? The people at the top have priority. So, of course, first person is going to be the person with a disability themselves. And then it goes their power of attorney, which is just a way for someone to legally give permission for somebody else to do something. Power of attorney, conservator or legal guardian, then spouse, parent, sibling, grandparent, and then rep payee at the bottom. Now, a lot of people, are concerned about how long it might take to open this account, but it's not that bad. It takes most people about 10, 15 minutes to get through this, and it's a different process than you might be used to for, applying for government benefits, since this is a savings plan. So one of the big reasons that it's much easier to open this is this idea of self-attestation, which is just a fancy way of saying you check a box saying that the information you are giving us is correct. At ABLE, we basically say, here are the rules, and you check a box saying, to the best of my ability, my understanding, I'm following those rules. Now, you're doing that under a penalty of perjury, which is basically like you legally promising that you're doing, the best you can. But because of that, you don't have to turn in documents to us. So you don't have to turn in, something proving your diagnosis. You get to just decide if I'm eligible for this account, if you're using it for an eligible expense. And then for the ALR, they're saying, yes, there's nobody higher on this list than me who is willing or able to do it. So I have the authority to manage this account. And because of all that, it makes it so much easier to open and manage. If you want to take money out to go buy something, you can just do that. You don't have to ask my permission in advance. You don't have to turn in receipts to me. You just withdraw your money and then you can go spend it like you would a traditional bank account. Now, you can probably tell that there is a lot of trust that has been built into the system. When Congress passed the ABLE Act, which allowed for these programs to exist, it changed the US tax code, which it means it's up to the IRS or the federal tax people to make sure that people are following the rules. So there is a chance that one day the IRS might reach out and want to see proof that you have like the condition you told us you have. They might want to see examples of how you've been spending your money. So we recommend keeping that stuff safe in a file, at least holding on to receipts for major purchases. But the IRS has assured us that they're not going to look more closely at somebody who has an ABLE account than they would somebody who wouldn't. So the likelihood that the IRS would reach out to you is no different whether or not you open this account. But we always, recommend people follow the rules. But yeah, the likelihood that they'll reach out to you is pretty small. They're famous for having too much work to do and not enough resources to get it done. So know that, it's a possibility, but I wouldn't be too concerned about it. Just do the best you can to manage the account. All right, something more fun. What can you use the account to save for? The most important thing to remember is that you can use the account to pay for anything that improves the health, independence, or the quality of life of the person with a disability. Now, the federal law specifically lists the following things: education, housing, basic living expenses, transportation, employment training and support, assistive technology, personal support services, health prevention and wellness, financial management, legal fees, funeral and burial costs. Now, a lot of things fit on this list, but not everything fits under there perfectly. Let's say we want to go on a trip to Disneyland. Is that going to be an eligible expense? Well, we can make the hotel fit under housing. We can make the train tickets down there fall under transportation. The actual tickets to Disneyland, that doesn't neatly fall into one of those categories. Thankfully, when Congress wrote this law, they realized each one of us is different. We have different hopes and dreams and needs and medical conditions, and they didn't want to, leave something off of this list that might be really important for someone. So they included this great phrase, this idea of and more. So back when the law first passed, states came together to figure out, what is this new thing they're asking us to do? And they had someone from the IRS come and explain the law to them. And someone there actually asked, what about this trip to Disneyland? Is that okay? And the gentleman from the IRS said, Disneyland's pretty fun. That's going to improve your quality of life. So yeah, you can use the account to go to Disneyland. Another thing to keep in mind is that what counts is unique to each person. The IRS also recognizes that we're each different, so they refuse to come up with a list of everything that counts and everything that doesn't. And recently, I ran into somebody who told me, no, Disneyland is not fun. I don't want to go there. And for some people, that's true. It is crowded. So if, for that person, this would not improve their quality of life, then it wouldn't be an eligible expense for that person, even if it would for, other people. So if you're thinking, what can I, use my ABLE money to go buy this thing? I recommend you ask yourself, does this improve my health, my independence, or my quality of life? And am I comfortable maybe explaining this to the IRS one day? If the answer is yes, you can use your money for it. Now, if the IRS comes back and says, I don't think that qualifies, if they disagree with you later, what happens? Well, there is a 10% penalty and taxes on the earnings of that expense. So when you put money into ABLE, everybody hopes it grows. The principal is what you put in there, and the earnings are those growth. So when you take the money out of the account, it is still made up of the principal and the earnings. Let's say I took out $100. The IRS told me they didn't like it, whatever I bought with it. Well, the earnings from that 100, let's just say was $10. So I only have to pay that 10% penalty and the taxes on that $10. So that's there to encourage people to follow the rules. But it's also, it's not taking a percentage of the whole thing. And as we've talked about, most things should fall under the list. So yeah, I haven't heard of anything that specifically doesn't count in all cases. And it's really, up to you. Now, there are some limits you should know about. The first is you can only have one ABLE account. You can't have an account in Oregon and an account in another state, one in the whole country. The most that can go in a single calendar year is $17,000. You can have up to $100,000 in there before SSI is impacted. If the amount in your account goes above $100,000, that extra amount starts counting as an asset for SSI only. So if you're over-resourced, SSI is suspended until the money in your account goes back below $100,000. Now, every other benefit continues, and the most you can have in your account is $400,000. There are some fees. First is a $35 annual flat fee. So that comes out of the account every 3 months. We take out $8.75 for a total of $35 a year. There's also an annual asset-based fee, which is 0.3% for money in our cash option and 0.34% for money in the investment option. So within ABLE, people can choose to save or invest. Our savings option is our cash option. It's going to be most similar to a savings account that you'd find at your local bank or credit union. It is FDIC insured, which means that the federal government guarantees you won't lose money in there. And it does have an interest rate. Our interest rate is tied to the Federal Reserve's interest rate. And over the past year, they have raised that rate a lot. So for anybody watching this webinar in the future, note that the interest rate that I'm about to tell you might be out of date. Every few months last year, they raised it, and it's possible that that continue here too. What we end up doing is taking whatever the current interest rate is, we subtract our 0.3% fee, and then you get what's left. So right now, after we have done all of that math, these accounts are getting 4.35% in the cash option. My own bank account is getting like 0.01%. So this is one of the few times when 4 sounds like a big number. The other options are investment options. So that means that you're putting money into the stock market. Conservative option is designed to take your principal and try and get it to grow a little bit and hopefully not dip below what you have put in there. But there is a small chance of risk, small chance of growth. That's designed for a shorter time period. Moderate option is trying to balance getting your money to grow and then having it not dip below what you've put in there. So that has more risk, medium level of risk, medium chance of growth for medium or unknown time period. The aggressive option is really trying to get your money to grow. So that has more risk than the other options, also a greater chance of growth. And that's designed for a longer time period, like 10 years or more. Now is a good time to mention that I am not a financial advisor, so I can't tell you which of these options is going to be best for your specific situation. What you're going to want to do is think about some of the general best practices that they recommend out in the financial world. Think about what you're using the account for and your risk tolerance. So when we're talking about what you're going to use your account for. We're also talking about how long it will take you to reach that goal. You know, are you saving to go to the grocery store next week? Are you saving for retirement in 30 years? Those are very different time periods, and most people would likely want to have different, to manage their money and have different strategies for that. You know, when you go to the grocery store, you're going to want to be certain that you know how much is in there. Now, for the risk tolerance, it is trying to figure out, you know, how comfortable are you with the possibility that the stock market is going to have a bad day, because the stock market does have bad days. Over the course of history, the stock market has gone up. That doesn't, you know, it doesn't go up in a straight line though. It has good days and bad days, and there are some days when it goes up and down a lot. So you need to know that there is that risk that that could happen. But historically, the longer someone's kept their money in there, the greater likelihood that it's gone up. Well, for some people, that is a really scary thought. You know, we know saving is new for a lot of our customers, and investing is, you know, even newer. They might not have done that at all. So, you know, if you are only comfortable going with that guaranteed option, that is fine. You can put all of your money in that cash option. You can also put all of your money in one investment option, or you can split it up amongst the options. And what you decide when you open the account is not what you're going to be stuck with forever. You can move money between these options twice a calendar year. And you can decide later on, you know, like, I've tried the savings thing for a while, it's going okay. You know, maybe you want to try investing some money and see what happens. You have that option. Now, contributions, money that can come from pretty much anywhere and be put into the ABLE account. Common sources we hear about are going to be a person's own paycheck, gifts from loved ones, leftover SSI, back pay, inheritance, maybe a settlement from a lawsuit. It does take about 3 to 7 business days to move money from an outside account into the ABLE account. Whenever you put money in, you have to put in at least $10. Now, if you know you want to save the same amount every month, you can set up automatic monthly transfers where you give us the information and then we just take care of it for you every month until you tell us to stop. We also have a partnership with Bottle Drop. So if you are a Bottle Drop member, you just fill up those green bags, drop them off. The money will end up in your Bottle Drop account, and then you can transfer it from the Bottle Drop account over to your ABLE account. We also have payroll deduction. So if you're working, you can send part of your paycheck directly to the ABLE account. Then we have gifting options. So this works kind of like a Kickstarter or GoFundMe, where you can set up your own little webpage. Then you send that link to your loved ones. They click on it, and they can directly put money into your account. So it's easy as it sounds, and it's a great option for any holidays, milestones, birthdays, or, you know, maybe you're just saving for something specific and you know that the people in your life would like to contribute for that. Just gives them an easy way to do that. But if you have someone who prefers, you know, sending in checks, that is an option too. Now, I said earlier that the most that can go into the account is $17,000 a year. Well, if you are working and not saving in a retirement plan, then you can save more. You can save an extra $13,590, or the total of your wages, whichever one is less. So if you make $5,000 a year, you can save an extra $5,000. If you make $30,000 a year, you can save an extra $13,590. You may be thinking that is a strange number because it is. It is tied to the previous year's federal poverty level for one person, which I'm guessing you don't have memorized. So now that number will go up a little bit each year, and we'll just update our system so you know what the new number is. Now, when you go to put money into the account, we ask, is this a standard contribution? Is it an able to work contribution? They're all part of the same overall account. but we have to track these buckets separately so that we're making sure to give you access to save for as much as you're entitled to. So when you put money in, we ask which one is it supposed to go to. And only the person with a disability can put money into this able to work bucket. Everybody else can put money into the standard contribution bucket, that's $17,000 a year. Also want to point out that even if you put all of your paycheck directly into the ABLE account, that money is still going to count as income for both taxes and benefits. So some benefits have income limits, some have asset or resource limits, some have both. The asset or resource limit is what says you can't have more than $2,000. The income limit is what says that you can't make more than a certain amount of money or can't work more than a certain number of hours. So we can just help with the asset or resource part. The way I like to remember it is by thinking that ABLE can't help someone earn more money at work. We can help them hold on to more of their paycheck at one time. Okay, withdrawals. Think of an ABLE account kind of like an online bank account. And it is helpful to have a traditional checking or savings account at your local credit union or bank so that you can attach to this one. Because we don't have any physical locations that you can go to access your money. But if you have it connected to a local account, you can walk in, you can transfer money from ABLE to the outside account and then walk in there and withdraw that cash. It does take 3 to 5 business days to make a withdrawal from our cash option, and it takes 5 to 7 days to make a withdrawal from the investment option. It's because we have to go and sell the investment to turn it into cash and then send it on its way. You can have ABLE mail a check to somebody, but it costs $2.50 per check. You can get even faster access to your money by using our prepaid card. This works most like a reloadable gift card where you get the card, you can decide how much to put on it. So let's say I'm managing this account for my brother. We might have $5,000 in his ABLE account, but then I decide to have $50 on his card. He can go and spend that money basically anywhere, both online or in person. But once he spent that $50, he is cut off. He can't, access the other money in his account. But I can log in and put more money on the card so that he can, keep buying what he wants to buy. So we think that this option is great for anyone who has an ALR managing their account because it gives them access to some spending money, gives them a way to practice managing money on their own. Every time you use the card, there's going to be a list of where that money was spent so that you can sit down at the end of the week and see, oh, I spent $10 at Starbucks every day. That's why I ran out of funds before I thought I would. And then you can have conversations about, is that really what you want to do with your money? Or do you want to save it for this other goal you told me you had? The card is available to all of our savers. There's no credit check for it, no transaction fees, and you're not able to get cash back with it. Since there is a record of where you have spent the money, there's also options to upload copies of receipts or to add a note saying this is what I got, just to help you manage your money. And then there are also different limits that you can set for the card. We think this is actually pretty cool. For me, I recognize that every time I go to Target, I spend more money than I was planning on. I'm a human being and Target is very good at convincing us to spend our money there. I can tell this card that I can't trust myself when I'm in Target. So don't let me spend more than $100 there. Then if I tried spending more than that, it wouldn't work. You can set limits saying, don't let me spend more than this amount a day. Don't work at these stores. Maybe only work at the grocery store. So many different options. And so this helps put some guardrails up to help kind of allow people to practice building financial skills in a more protected place. And these guardrails are all options. If you don't need them, you don't have to use them. But this does allow people to practice managing their money. Maybe you ease up on some of the options of those limits as they get more comfortable with it. And this card is available to all of our savers. You can have the ALR have one card with one set of limits, and then the beneficiary, the person with a disability, with their own card on limits. We know not everyone needs one of these cards though, so we have an extra fee that we're only charging the people who have the cards. And that cost is $1.25 a month, no matter how often you use it. So only sign up for the card if you think you're going to spend money on it often enough. Now there are tax benefits for this account. When you put money in ABLE, we all hope it grows. That growth is free of both state and federal taxes, as long as you use it for an eligible expense. It's also possible that up to $2,000 of a person's own contributions, like the person with the disability's own contributions, could qualify for the Savers Credit. This is a federal tax credit that was originally designed to help low and moderate income workers save for retirement. Well, they expanded that to count ABLE contributions, but it still does have those income limits attached to it. So just know that whenever you go to file your taxes, no matter what manner you're doing that, they'll basically ask, how much money you've made this year. They'll ask if you put money into the ABLE account, and then they'll do the math to figure out if you qualify for it. There's also a state income tax credit. So anyone who contributes can take a refundable tax credit up to $150 for single filers and $300 for joint filers. This means that you can get up to $150 or $300 back when you file your taxes. And it is a progressive tax credit, which means that it has more of an impact on our low and moderate income savers. We recognize that savings is hard for everybody, but it is extra hard if you don't have a lot of money to save. So for someone making less than $30,000 a year, for every dollar they put into ABLE, they can get $1 back on their taxes. And then add up to those $150 or $300 limits. Then as somebody moves up the income ladder, it becomes every $2 you put in here, you can get $1 back on your taxes. But this chart is available on the FAQ portion of our website if you need to see it again later. Now, how do you get this account? We recommend going to our website, OregonAbleSavings.com. The only way to get an ABLE account is through one of these state programs that offers them. So if you try to get one from your local bank or credit union, everybody just gets confused. If you don't already have that checking or savings account, we do recommend going there and getting one so that you can connect it to ABLE, because it just makes the whole thing easier for you to manage. You'll also need to put in at least $25 to manage the account. So this is a good slide to take a quick screenshot of, because it walks you through next steps. First step is getting information together, like the Social Security number or the individual tax ID number for the people involved in this. We also are going to want to know about that bank account that you're going to attach. So we'll either need your login information or account and routing number. Then go to OregonAbleSavings.com, click Open an Account. In the upper right-hand corner, fill out the form, attach the bank account, put in at least $25, and then you're done. Most people can get through this process 10-15 minutes. Now, there is one exception. And let's say if you don't have a lot of credit, rental, or employment history, it's likely that you're going to have a difficult time getting through this process online. That's because there is part of this online process that asks questions that are unique to each person. What they're doing is trying to verify your identity, because the federal government says that we have to do that. We have to know all the people who are going to be using this this service. So the fastest way to do that is by pulling information from someone's credit, rental, employment history. And then it creates questions like, which of these counties have you lived in? Which of these companies have you worked for? But some of our savers don't really have those histories, or maybe if your disability impacts your memory, you might not remember the answers to all these questions because they might ask about something that happened decades ago. So if somebody's not able to get through that process, they get an error message and it says call customer service. But I know that some people get nervous and give up at that point. So if that happens, please don't give up. You can still likely have an account. You just have to fill out the paper version of the form and then mail it in. So if this sounds like you, that you might have trouble getting through it, just go to OregonAbleSavings.com/forms, print out the enrollment form, fill it out, and then mail it in. You'll need to do that with a copy of like a state photo ID, like a driver's license. And then once we process that in a different way, you'll be able to manage the account online, just like everyone else. Okay, now, if there are any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat. I'm going to show our contact information, and then I'm going to turn off the recording, and then we can answer any questions that you might have. So feel free to email me or my coworker, Stephanie, or both of us, and then we should be able to respond faster, and we can help answer any questions, solve any problems that might come up for you. So I will put this in the chat as well so you can copy and paste it. Otherwise, thank you so much for coming to this presentation or watching it online.